We're back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We were just catching up on this beautiful Friday. Hello.
I am so grateful the sun is out.
The sun's
All right, you
out.
see I'm smiling a little brighter today because the sun's a little brighter today. So my name, Jaleel Vester, Business Education Coordinator, Business Owner with Urban Impact.
Hello, Michelle Rea, and I do our marketing and logistics.
And that leaves me. I'm Mara Palmer. I'm the Economic Development Program Manager.
Yes.
All right, you want to take it away?
Okay, so last week we talked about what is your superpower? And last week we talked about how do you figure out what your calling is? But this week our focus is going to be how do you walk in your calling? And we've got a couple bullet points here.
Come on.
We're going to go through.
Super excited about this conversation because we started the conversation last week around imagining if you saw Superman getting beat up by a bunch of thugs. How frustrating would that be? You know that Superman has all this power, and yet he's getting beat up. And that's really us on every day. You are a powerful person. We are powerful people, but oftentimes we'll let little things beat us up. And so the question is, how? How did Superman get into this situation where he can just get beat up by commoners, people that he should be able to throw into the air and across the world and fly around and destroy? Well, kryptonite. Kryptonite is the weakness of Superman. And so if Superman was surrounded by a bunch of kryptonite, then he would be powerless. When we are surrounded by a bunch of kryptonite in our day, in our time, wherever we're at, in our environment, then oftentimes it's our environment that ends up stripping us of the power that we should have or the power that we should be walking in. So super excited about walking in your calling, but also we're going to talk about the environment and how to shape that environment so that you can fly and run instead of crawl and walk.
That's right. Specifically, I mean, I think a lot of people, it takes getting out of your environment to realize that you are much more than what that environment allowed you to be. And it makes me think of like a lot of, I think my cousins have, even my siblings, like I remember just telling my brother like, go find, like I actually rented a U-Haul and moved my brother out of my mom's house. And he was just moving to UW, from Beacon Hill to UW. But I just said, you need to leave. You need to get out of here. Like, you're only going to grow so much in this household. Like, you need to get out of this house to grow to that next point. I mean, one of my biggest regrets was not moving across the country for college. I just know that I would have grown into a completely different person. I mean, obviously God's plan was for me to stay here. But I know that I sooner or later have to leave Seattle because there's room for me to grow outside of this environment, even here in Seattle. But that is, even just around your family. They see you one way, they've seen you one way your whole life. And so if you don't get away from that environment, you will never know what, you can make of yourself in other places.
That's real. That is so real. Moving out of the environment you're raised in. There's a couple of things that makes me think about. The first thing is that, like, really the last thing you said, when other people have familiarity with you, then they'll often project their biggest vision of what you could be based on past experience and not your future potential. And so it's like even subconsciously, the little things that you do that don't fit that picture, they'll shoot it down or give you some sideways comment. Like you're trying to grow, you're making these different decisions, and they're like, "Oh, why would you do that? Like, why would you even think that you could do that?" Because they don't have a picture of what you're starting to see, and then because they're familiar or you're familiar with them, it's like the people that are most familiar to us, when they don't see that vision that we're starting to see. It's like we get chopped down, or sucked down, and sometimes they love you, but they love the version of you that they know,
that they're comfortable with.
That they're comfortable with, because they've only grown to a certain point, oftentimes too. So
yeah, it can be really hard when you're a loyal, faithful individual, and everybody around you views life a little different, you know, whether it's generations. You know, I've heard oftentimes, you know, don't share your plans with people who don't have your vision. You know,
I've heard that too.
it goes, yeah, it's many different aspects to that where we love our family, we love our people, we want to take them with us,
Yeah.
you know, but everybody isn't going to reach the top of the mountain, you know. Some people are okay with being in the middle. They like the view from there.
Hey, that's true.
That's
Some
real.
people really like it.
Just fine.
That's
Yeah.
real.
So, you know, I think taking an inventory of your life, really, really assessing, is this helpful? Is this hurtful? You know, and so being an adult oftentimes is in management, both roles, both titles requires having difficult conversations and making choices that could affect you for the rest of your life. So
Yeah.
adequate assessment of your environment and really just defining what your goals are. Where do you want to go with it? And it's, you know, it's different places and spaces for different people at different comfort levels. But when it comes to me, I'll see you at the top.
Come on. Come on.
You know.
That's real. That's actually real. What that made me think of is like, because we're all have different origin stories. And so even our parents, different origin stories than the one that we are coming from now. You know, like they had to lay a certain foundation, and that foundation could be functional or dysfunctional or a little bit of mixture of both. Most people have a little bit of a mixture of both. And so it's like, if you're surrounded by people that maybe they started in the gutter, right? Like underground, like they were in the pit. So they crawled out of the pit and now they're in the valley. And so the valley is heaven to them. Because compared to the pit, this is it. Like we made it. Like we're surviving. This is great. Like we were dying, now we're surviving. But now that you have the environment that you're in and you're in the valley, but you're seeing the mountaintop. And now you're like, no, I need to get to the mountaintop. And they're like, no, the valley is perfect.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? This is heaven. Like, no, that's heaven. This is barely survival. I want to thrive. They're like, I don't understand what that is because I came from that. You know, so it's like, it's really sometimes not even a fault to them. Because they had to crawl out of whatever they crawled out of so that you can be here. And now you have vision. Because you're now here, you have a vision for there.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, you know, that loyalty piece and being able to kind of adult and separate, and that's really a process because that doesn't happen at a certain age. That really happens at a certain like time where, because I would say that change, it doesn't take forever to change. It takes a moment, but sometimes it can take forever until you get to that moment where you've decided I will no longer tolerate X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yes.
And once you hit to that point of non-toleration, because life will give you what you tolerate, not what you want, what you tolerate. And once and maybe you got to go. I feel like I'm testifying. Sometimes maybe you gotta go. Maybe you gotta go through some things, okay?
Right.
Maybe you gotta go through some things until you get to the point where like, I'm done.
Absolutely.
I'm done. And now life will look different because your point of tolerance is like snapped. You know. So
we were talking about failing and how, you know, people are afraid to fail. But if you think about it, like what you're saying, like you have to go through some things to realize that that's not what you want. So it just makes me think of, some people have made fun of me for this, but I have these things called realizations, which goes hand in hand with like looking in the mirror, how you were talking about that. Like I'll sit down and I'll really have some realizations about where am I at in life? Who do I have around me? Like what types of things am I doing? And really talk to myself like, is this good for you? Like, is this the job you want? Is this the environment? Is this the apartment you want to live in? Or where do you want to be living in? Like, is just having these realizations. And then it's just like, okay, nope, I don't want that. I don't want that. This is what I actually want. And once you start having these conversations with yourself about what is it that you actually want, but you can't know what you want until you go through what you don't want. You know?
yeah.
And so that goes to, your gifts, right? You may know that I was talking about a good friend of mine. She's an incredible stylist. She's ready to leave her job and she's going to look for another job. And then I'm like, but what is the dream? Like, what is your dream? And she shared it with me and she goes, but I'll probably never do that. And it's like, but why? Like, why are you telling yourself that that's not something you would ever do? And it just takes, like you said, that one moment. And now her mindset is like, okay, actually, maybe I can do that. So who do I have to surround around myself around? And I mean, Jolo, you were talking about this, books even.
Oh, yes,
Surrounding
yes.
yourself around books.
Come on. So before we started recording, we were talking about the 5 people that you hang around and how they really influence where you will end up over time. And for me, there was a time where the 5 people that I wanted to hang around the most were not around me physically as far as people goes, but there were books that there were different authors. There was Dr. Miles Monroe, who taught me about the kingdom of God. There was Tony Robbins, who taught me about investing and finance through his book 7 Steps to Money, Mastering the Game. There was Robert Kiyosaki in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad that talked to me about real estate and how to think about money and how to develop skills. There was people like Jim Rohn, who taught me about sales and leadership. Les Brown talked to me about motivation. Those are guys I listen to constantly on YouTube, you know. So those were minds that I engaged with through whatever content medium that I had access to. It was a book, it was an audiobook, it was a YouTube channel, and those were my 5 people.
Yeah.
And so for you, in your environment, if you can't find the model in the physical being, because of our day and age now, you've got us, all right? We're here, you're locked in, and then you've got other people. You've got so many authors and people throughout history that you can access, that they can be a part of your 5. You know, they can be part of the 5 people that elevate you. It doesn't have to be just, you're not limited. You're not limited to the people in your circle, you know?
Yeah, well, doing that assessment of who is accessible to you can also bring up some skill sets where you know you lack. So being honest with yourself,
Bingo.
For one, like, you know, it's funny, when I was coming up, I used to always joke about having a training program, right? 'Cause of course, my kids were under my domain. So I strategically put them in different sports and programs to develop certain skill sets. And truthfully, I did the same thing with my own adult life, right? So I grew up in the 80s. So we were a lot of self-taught, latchkey, overly independent young people, you know, but I understood myself, right? I understood I'm a real like laid back person, and my goal was to never have to wake up at the crack of dawn like we used to go to school. So
Right.
that would require a little extra work in order for you to be able to put your own hours together. I just knew I'm not a cubicle person.
Yeah.
Right? So that lifestyle was not one I desired. So that saved me probably a decade.
Wow. Yeah.
Trying to find
Real
myself,
talk.
you know. And
Real talk.
back then they didn't
Save
really
10 years.
recognize self-employment as real experience. So you had to work twice as hard.
Wow.
But I knew that from day one.
Okay.
Like I can remember going to DSHS and asking for money for tuition so I can go to beauty school, you know, because I had a kid in high school. So now I'm done with high school. I have this child.
Come on.
I know how to provide for him because God gave me the natural skills, but I'm trying to go learn the book way to do it.
Yeah.
So I can develop myself, right,
Yeah.
and be fully rounded.
Let's go.
And yeah, they told me it was a declining industry. So they would pay, you know, 1/4 of tuition, and that was it. And so I checked myself and said, I will never be in this position again. You know, I don't like dealing with gatekeepers, and I don't like hearing no.
Yeah.
So that would require mastery,
Come
you
on.
know, at every skill level. And
Come
I
on.
sought out to get that experience. Like if you see a job and the job description has things that you don't have, but this is something that you're curious about, pursue opportunities that'll give you those skills, right? And so you can call it paid training, you can call it mentorship, internship, whatever you want to call it. as long as you are advancing, so you get that experience to know if this is something you really want to do or not. You just develop so much more when you have a say, right?
That's good.
Unlike high school, I used to tell my kids, well, college is different. You
Yeah.
can pick and
Pick
the
your curriculum.
areas that you want to pursue.
Yes.
But it's up to you. You
Right.
know, self-motivation is a mystery. Like if we knew how to motivate these kids, we wouldn't have any worries. But you know, it's to each his own. But when you surround yourself with go-getters, people
That's
that
right.
remain open to being coachable, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
I think that's
Huge.
like key. I think that's something that kids need to learn. Like, you just need to have your own motivation. You know, it's like I've done a lot of nannying in my times because that's what I used to do in high school, college, and even after college when I was going to the boot camp I went to. But a lot of those kids just were everything was so given to them that they didn't understand, like, self motivation. So, like, in order to do well on a test at school, like, they had to be told they would get money for bringing home an A. It's like, just because they know that they're going to get money, that's why they're going to do good. You don't actually want to do good because you don't actually want to learn. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I was never given that. You know, I came from a place where you had to literally make magic with what you had. Because you didn't have much, but we were magicians, okay? We made things happen.
Come on.
And that has taught me so much more than if my parents were like, you bring home an A, I'm going to give you $20 at the end of the week. You know? It's like, it's almost like it's just guaranteed, as opposed to I had to do all these tricks and all sorts of investigating to figure out how I was going to get that A. It was me wanting to get that A. A little bit of fear from my mom, but you know, she didn't have to pay me
fear
for
of God
it.
and
You
mom.
know, but that
The fear
has
of mom.
taken me so far. You know, knowing that I have to go off and get it by myself, than knowing that somebody else is always going to provide for me.
So I'm hearing a lot of, and this talk is awesome because I'm hearing a lot. Like I heard intrinsic motivation. So for you, it was like, I want to perform. I'm going to find a way because this is the expectation. And then observing some children needing extrinsic motivation from their parents. So like money, because now if they can earn money, now they can go use that money to go get what they want, that toy, that thing, whatever. And so I've also heard honesty, being able to look in the mirror and say, what skills do I have?
Right.
Where am I actually at compared to where I want to go? And then the funny thing is you got rejected by people that said that your business is a dying industry and it's still in existence today and people are still killing the game and you're still killing the game. Look, walking, living, breathing testimony, like, period. So there was I love watching like motivational people on Instagram and stuff. And so this one person was telling a story about how he's like, oh, you know, who's this person that you want to date or, you know, finding this spouse in the future. And so they start like listing all these things. I think he was a man talking to a bunch of women at this conference, I'm pretty sure. Also, he's got to earn over $100K a year. He's got to have, he's got to be kind and patient and generous. He's got to be thoughtful. And he's like, all right, perfect. You got your list? Everyone got your list? Write your list out. We're like, yeah, everybody, yeah, we got a list. We gonna find a $1 million man. Become that. Wait, what? So you got to become what you want to attract was the principle that he was teaching there. And I thought he laid it out smooth because everyone was like checkmated, like, oh, because looking in the mirror, you knew you had the dream list, but you knew like, oh, there's some gaps here. But if you get around the right people, you get around the mindsets, then you can start clear. And what I want to highlight something with you, Michelle, because you were that catalyst person for your friend. You told the story of your friend that she's super successful. She wants to do something, and she didn't think that she could do it. She said, oh, I want to be my own stylist. Oh, but I'll never do that. And you checked her. And you're like, what you mean?
Yeah.
Here's a list of books. And now you were the catalyst for her and her story because now she believes. And that's who you've got to get around. You've got to get around people that are going to check you when you're self-doubting and say, hey, wait, you are created in the image of God. You are unlimited. I want to remind you of that, my friend. I know you're having a hard day today, but I want to remind you of your greatness and your potential. So here's some resources. Here's some books. Get around people that will encourage you to do what you need to do. And then sometimes, also to Michelle's point earlier, you're not always going to have those people around you. Even like Mara was saying, you're not always going to have those people around you. So that intrinsic motivation has to kick in at that time.
That's right.
And you have to want it and be willing to do the work that you need to do, whether you feel like it or not, because you're not always going to have a crowd of cheerleaders. You want to attract those people, you want to get around those people, but at the end of the day, you got to save you. So those are some of the things as we've been talking about today, and I'm enjoying even producing this type of content because I feel like it's healing to me, it's motivational to me to have these conversations, and it just helps me to, because when you have to communicate something, like you really have to start to understand it. I'm like, wow, like when I start pushing away certain pieces of my environment, I really feel like I've started to wake up, like my brain is, like I'm seeing in color, you know what I'm saying? In some aspects I was seeing in grayscale, at some level functional, and grayscale is functional. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
But when you get that pop of color, you get that digital cinema, I'm talking surround sound, Dolby, I'm saying IMAX, you know what I'm saying? Movie where the colors coming and the
now
bass is pumping
comfy
through your body and you're like, yeah, okay. You know what I'm saying?
You're in 4D all of a sudden.
You're 4D. It's a different world. You're like, I can see clearly now. The gray is gone. And it's crazy. So I appreciate y'all being able to have these types of conversations because I feel like I've just been learning, growing so much. And I hope that's your experience as well. Because when you start to remove the kryptonite in your life, I'm telling you, when you start to, we talked earlier about losing. And you had something really interesting about that. Just I don't know how you said it really cool. Something about being able to like understand the process, be okay with failure. What was kind of some of you were saying earlier with that? We're in the restaurant. You remember it? Okay, I'll tell you what I heard. All right, maybe she can correct me.
Remind me.
But essentially, we're talking about how like losses is just a part of the process, and so when you can like detach your value from your results, it's a really freeing experience.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, well, it's supposed to be hard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And if this thing that I'm trying doesn't work out, it doesn't mean I am worthless or I'm bad. It's just that thing didn't work out. And you there's so many people that have made it, like billionaires or whatever, like they went bankrupt multiple times.
Yeah, before they made it.
So it's like, oh, you have to learn how to lose. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to lose before you can win.
Yes.
And that stuck with me.
I have, this has always stuck with me because I used to be someone who I'd be so afraid to lose or so afraid to be wrong that I wouldn't even try. And so I had this teacher in 10th grade in my math class. I was in trigonometry, and she just was like, why don't you even answer the problem on the test? Like, what is going on? Like, you don't even put anything down. I said, because I don't know anything. She's like, you know something. She's like, so here, I'm going to do this for you. If you can just give me an answer and you can show me your work of how you got that answer can be completely wrong, I'll give you 3/4 of the points. And then I'll let you do test corrections and allow you to get up to full points back.
Wow.
And that just changed my perspective. I was like, okay. Oh, you're going to
So you're getting rewarded for trying. For losing. Oh my gosh.
I knew that the
rewarding
I
for
was
effort.
going to answer it wrong, but it was crazy because I learned so much from my mistakes. Because then she would sit with me and we would walk through the problem, and then I would understand where was it in the problem that I went wrong. And then I was able to do the test corrections and get full points. And so it's that thing about these people who are now successful millionaires and billionaires. They have probably done that. They've done something, failed at it,
Yeah.
but then and went bankrupt.
Yes.
But went ahead and were like, all right, where did I go wrong? And then tried it
Try it again.
and may have failed again. But then most of the time, that third time,
Bingo. Then
They
when it
make
hits,
it.
it hits.
'cause
And then
you
everyone
learn.
sees the highlight, like, oh, I want to
Right.
be like you, but they don't want to go through all the process. Okay, something you just said literally lights me up just as an educator. First of all, your teacher was very above average.
Yeah.
To be able to figure you out as a student on an individual
Yes.
level and see where you were at. And then number two, she rewarded effort and
Yeah.
not performance.
There we go.
And man, I feel like I'm literally having a whole moment right now, because when that's like your upbringing, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's performance is
Right.
rewarded, but effort, like when you can reward
Yeah.
effort,
Yeah.
you can free someone of like the result, and they say, oh hey, you tried, amazing,
Yes.
like celebrate that more.
Yes.
And so when the mistakes happen, it's like you build this belief system that it's like, hey, that's okay, that's fine, this is a
Yeah.
part of the process.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Unlike the dark cloud that hangs over participation trophies, we actually do
Well,
want you to be prideful of getting off the bench and getting in
Yeah.
the game, because that's really the only way you get credit in the real world. So
Yeah.
before we wrap, I just want to share a couple things that I came across that could be beneficial, and these are identifying skills that are going to be beneficial in your life, just period, personally as well as professionally, taking accountability. So when it comes to business, it's assumed that everybody knows how to sell and negotiate, but that very well may be a skill you need to develop, right? It's a level of mastery that shows for
That's real.
companies that have legacy businesses and
Yeah.
have been around forever,
Yeah.
right? So it's okay to delegate in certain circumstances, but you really, as an entrepreneur, need to have the know-how. You might
Yeah.
not want to do every job, but you need to know the functionality for your business
Yeah.
and document it. Okay,
Yeah.
so learn if you're the right person or not. Get some more training.
Bingo.
Talk to
Right.
somebody that knows more than you. That's
Bingo.
usually the doorway to get to where you want. And then your ability to convey how you feel and what you think. Like, that's not high level for most people.
That's
That
real.
is something that comes with being a reader
Yeah.
and a writer, right? So if those aren't your passions, then maybe you need to pivot to another medium, like online books or
Wow.
online workshops, or just recognize your skills and work on the things that could really change the game for you.
That's powerful.
Those are just two, but there's plenty more. Just
Oh, yeah.
keep at it. That's
Yeah.
all. Practice makes perfect, and that's not just a cliche.
Absolutely.
I
Well-
think that was perfect. I enjoyed this. This was awesome. If you enjoyed this, like, follow, share this with someone. Share this with someone that this would encourage. All right, just
Yes.
literally hit the little arrow icon, get the link, share it to 3 people, because when you can be that person, that catalyst, like Michelle was for her friend, you're changing lives. And that feeling of being able to be that encourager for someone, literally, it's better to give than it is to receive. So just grow the habit of being the person that's going to encourage someone to be their best self, because
Yes.
you'll always be blessed. You'll never go wrong, and trust, it will come back. So we
Yeah.
say, you hear people on YouTube say, oh, like, share, da da da, for like their own publicity. We literally want you just to share this. Like, if you found anything that's valuable, just become a person that shares valuable things to other people, and good things always will come back around to you.
That's right.
So that's it. That's all I gotta
Have
say.
it. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us or rewatching it. Again, share it. At the end in May, we just want to remind y'all we have our pitch competition coming up. Again, it is open to the public, which is the first year we're doing it in a long time. So it'll be Tuesday, May 28th at 5:30 p.m. If you want some to do that Tuesday, and you want to support some entrepreneurs, see what it looks like to go through our product and be not a product, our program and
Come
be a
on.
final product of that program.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, it'll be their first time pitching ever.
Mm.
And so you'll get to see what it looks like
Yes.
to be at that final stage, and just support them, because they're going to be,
Oh yeah.
it's nerve-wracking to go up there for the first time, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be a good way to support Urban Impact and get to know more about us. So put that on your
Absolutely.
calendars.
Yeah, come through, and then if you want to partner with the work, so maybe you're a successful business person already and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm doing my thing, my money is set up, my kids are set up, but you have this space in your calendar and you want to give back, you want to do something that's fulfilling, then hit us up, urbanimpactseattle.org, and hit the general inquiry link, and then write that out. There's going to be a bunch of questions there. That way you can find out more about our programs. We want you ultimately to connect with us so that we can potentially, after we kind of vet you out, partner you up with some of these entrepreneurs that we serve. You can be a business consultant for them, and I'm telling you, it is very, very fulfilling work. So if that's you, if you're successful, you want to give back to some entrepreneurs that we're serving in this community, hit us up on the website. And also, if you want to give to the program as well, you can find ways to do that on the website as well.
All right. Happy
Well,
Friday.
and then happy Easter on Sunday.
Happy Easter. God is good.